the 36th chamber of Shaolin and Kung Fu Panda, the hero's journey archetype serves as the main driving force for the plot. Although Liu Yude and Po are completely different in nature, each film follows a unique three-act structure which reveals undeniable parallels between the two distinct characters. The 36th Chamber of Shaolin is a 1978 Shaw Brothers kung fu film directed by Liu Qiaoliang and starring Gordon Liu as the protagonist, Liu Yude. The film is widely considered to be one of the greatest kung fu films and a turning point in its directors' and stars' careers. The film follows a highly fictionalized version of Santa, the legendary Shaolin martial arts disciple who trained under the General Qi Shan. Santa begins as a student whose friends, family, and school are wiped out by the Manchu government and heads for the Shaolin Temple to learn Kung Fu in order to seek vengeance upon those who wreaked havoc upon his life.
Kung Fu Panda is a 2008 American computer-animated action comedy martial arts film produced by DreamWorks Animation and distributed by Paramount Pictures. It was directed by John Stevenson and Mark Osborne and stars the voices of many notable actors and actresses, such as Jack Black, Dustin Hoffman, Angelina Jolie, Ian McShane, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu, David Cross, and Jackie Chan. Set in a version of ancient China populated by human-like talking animals, the plot revolves around Po, an incompetent and heavy-set panda who aspires to be a kung fu master. When the evil Tai Lung is foretold to escape prison, Po is unwittingly named the Dragon Warrior, destined to bring peace to the land, much to the displeasure of his kung fu peers. The film was originally intended to be a parody, but director Stevenson decided instead to create an action comedy wuxia film that incorporates the hero's journey narrative archetype for the lead character.
Leon Hunt writes, the three-act structure of the 36th Chamber of Shaolin is not dissimilar to the three phases of certain initiation rituals: separation, the isolation of the initiate; margin or limen, the rite itself, which may be painful and or difficult; and aggregation or reintegration. Page 63.
Although both movies are extremely different in plot and dynamic, they both similarly follow the hero's journey in the same three-act structure, which reveals stark parallels between the two protagonists, Liu Yude and Po. For an ostensible outsider, Po conforms very much to the familiar animated movie type. Like Nemo and the rest of his cartoon brethren, he needs to embark on the hero's journey, which he does with help from a miscellany of pals voiced by the usual A and B-listers.
The first act, Separation, deals with the protagonist's isolation from their current living circumstances due to some greater need. The first sequence of each film clearly depicts the separation phase for each protagonist. For Liu Yude, his lifestyle as a student is turned upside down by the oppressive Manchu government, and his hero's journey begins as he leaves for the Shaolin Temple with the singular goal of learning Kung Fu.
For Po, his mundane lifestyle as a noodle shop worker is instantly transformed with the unexpected title of Dragon Warrior, where he decides to remain at the Jade Palace to learn Kung Fu. At first, both protagonists are out of place, seemingly appearing to have no sense of belonging as to how they could currently live. An evil force creates a need for both heroes to learn Kung Fu, which transitions the film into the grueling margin or limen phase, or Act 2 of the three-act structure.
Limen is the point at which a stimulus is strong enough to produce a physiological or psychological response. Leon Hunt writes, it is this middle phase that is important here because it provides access to a liminal state. Limen means threshold, which is not a space one remains in for long, nor a place one notices in the act of crossing. The liminal phase is a phase rather than a moment, and one that brings about profound changes. Page 63.
For the hero's journey archetype, the limen phase is undoubtedly the most crucial. In essence, it represents the journey itself. It embodies not only the hero's physical transition, but inner transition as well.
When Yude arrives at the Shaolin Temple and Po the Jade Palace, both protagonists lack martial arts skills and physical prowess. Their peers perceive them to be complete and utter failures with almost zero potential. However, a strong inner force motivates each hero to stay and push through the grueling trials and tests given to them, because each knows that there is nothing left for them if they return home. Along with their own internal motivation, a headmaster puts strong faith into each of the protagonists, encouraging them down their path.
While the other monks wanted to turn Yude away for being an outsider, the chief abbot allowed him to stay, motivating him for success. After being ridiculed by both Shifu and the Furious Five for the undeserving title of Dragon Warrior, Po is given words of encouragement by Grandmaster Oogway to continue his training. Oogway states, there are no accidents, and wholeheartedly believes Po is destined to be the Dragon Warrior, even when Po himself and his peers do not.
Regarding Shaolin pedagogy, Leon Hunt indicates there are essentially four sources of learning in the martial arts film: nature, a book or manual, Shaolin technology, and the master or Shifu, page 60. In learning Kung Fu, both protagonists utilize these four main sources in their path to becoming great warriors.
The first source is nature, and nature was prevalent in both films. In the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, Yu De had to balance on floating logs to jump over a water pit, utilize light to improve his reaction skills, and use bamboo trees as an inspiration for his three-section staff. In Kung Fu Panda, the Furious Five and their respective fighting styles were the clearest manifestation of natural animals. Shifu uses the surrounding environment and food to positively reinforce Po's training. The second source is book or manual. In regards to a special book or manual, this is not directly present in the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. However, Santo's creation of his own chamber to teaching layman Kung Fu can be seen as an interpretation of this. In Kung Fu Panda, the Sacred Dragon Scroll is the clear depiction of a secret manual, and Po is able to eventually decipher its meaning for self-actualization.
The third main source, Shaolin technology, was clearly seen in the 36th Chamber of Shaolin throughout the 35 chambers that Santo had to pass. This includes carrying heavy water pails with bladed armbands, striking a gong repeatedly with a heavy pole, developing eye coordination by focusing on a rocking candle reflector, twisting metal spirals with a staff, and headbutting sandbags. In Kung Fu Panda, Shaolin technology was seen in the Furious Five's intense obstacle training room. The fourth main source, Master or Shifu, was clearly seen in the 36th Chamber of Shaolin in the Chief Abbot and the Justice Abbot, which served as mentors to Santa. Each motivate him to become a better fighter and more disciplined. In Kung Fu Panda, Master Shifu serves as Po's teacher. They exhibit a very close master-disciple relationship. At first refusing to teach him, Shifu eventually warms up to Po and puts all his effort into transforming Po into the Dragon Warrior. Santa's defeating of the Justice Abbot is parallel to Po's capturing of the dumpling from Shifu. The third and final act, aggregation, deals with the hero's reintegration back into society, and more often than not, the accomplishment of their goal formed during the separation phase. Liu Yu De's aggregation back into society is reflected through his departure of the Shaolin Temple and return to his native village. He is able to successfully apply the knowledge he learned during the alignment phase at the temple by defeating the evil Tian Ta and liberating his people from oppression. Reintegration back into society is also shown through his creation of the 36th Chamber, where the specialized kung fu skills he learned at the temple are taught to common folk.
For Po, aggregation back into society is reflected through his completed training with Master Shifu and the revealing of the Sacred Dragon Scroll. Po successfully defeats Tai Lung with the skills and insight he gained during his Lyman phase, and he successfully brings harmony back to the Village of Peace. In the end of each film, each protagonist completes their hero's journey by accomplishing their initial goal that was formed during the first act of separation.
In conclusion, although Liu Yu De and Po are very different on surface level, each hero has more similarities than meets the eye. The hero's journey archetype unites the personas of these two protagonists, mainly through accordance with a distinct three-act structure: separation, margin or lineman, and aggregation.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.